Hey, it's your Gay Sports Fanatic here with you again. And today we are going to look at the Big Ten schedules for 2024. As you know, everything's changed. To the Big Ten, we've added Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. So there's really nobody that I would say has an easy schedule, but some are harder than others. But nobody. So the Big Ten West in the past has been weak. Let's just call a spade a spade. And you could win the Big Ten West with a really mediocre record. I mean, but the East was loaded with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. So that's all gone now. Now nobody's got a cakewalk. Nobody's got it easy. Some have it rougher than others. And I'll tell you the four that I pick out that are probably in the top five, maybe the top four toughest schedules are the new additions, the new friends to the conference, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. So let's take a quick gander at you guys know that's an old time phrase my dad uses all the time. Let's look first at UCLA. I want to state first for UCLA and for USC, they both play LSU. Okay, I mean non-conference, they both play LSU. Why they scheduled this, I have no idea. Why LSU scheduled this, we'll talk about that a bit, I guess, with the SEC schedules. But I'd like to talk to the person who schedules LSU's football on top of the SEC. You add UCLA and USC, crazy. So anyway, the UCLA schedule. Um, I have no idea how good UCLA is going to be. They haven't been worth a hoot in 25 years, but they better pick their game up fast because they've got LSU on the road. That's in September. They get Oregon at home. Nobody wants to play Oregon, let me tell you. They're at Penn State, so they get on the space shuttle and go out, three time zones, coast to coast, and play Penn State. That's not going to be fun. They get Iowa at home. They go to Washington. And then, of course, their season ending finale against USC. So the four new teams coming in, the new schools, I'd say UCLA has the easiest, but I'd also say they're the worst team of the four. So look at it that way. Now let's go to USC. So tough team last year. Obviously, they lost Caleb Williams. So the question is, how good will they be this year? That's an open question, but I got a feeling that they're going to not be bad at all. And they're going to need to be good. Listen to this. So LSU, first game of the year in Las Vegas. Then they get to go to Michigan. That'll be a lot of fun. Then Wisconsin at home, Penn State at home. Then they get to go to Washington. Then they go to UCLA, the classic matchup. And then they end the season, of course, with their other classic rivalry, which is Notre Dame. And Notre Dame will be mentioned when I talk about the easier schedules in college football because they have one. We may not know how good Notre Dame really even is this whole season, but this would be one game that Notre Dame's going to face resistance. So anyway, USC Notre Dame to finish out the season. This is a tough schedule for you. I mean, LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, UCLA, Notre Dame. That's tough. So then let's go over and look real quick at Washington. So Washington has Michigan at home. They go to Iowa. I'm going to tell you, that'll be tough. USC at home. Then they also have to, get up in the stratosphere and get to Penn State. That'll, again, I'm going to keep saying this, but that's no easy task. UCLA at home, and they finish off the season at Oregon, and you don't want to do that. Trust me. So now we go to Oregon, who's probably, in my opinion, the best of the four teams that are coming into the Big Ten this year. But they're going to need to be. Listen to this. So they're scheduled. They're at UCLA, Michigan State at home, but then they've got Ohio State and at Michigan back to back, back to back. So okay, then they go to Wisconsin. They may be depleted by that time, and once again flying, two time zones there. Then they finish up with Washington at home. So Oregon is going to need to be as good as advertised because this is a gauntlet. The other one I'm going to put up there, a great legacy program, won the national title last year. Their coach is split. I don't know how good talking about Michigan here. I don't know how good Michigan's going to be this year. I think there's going to be a step down. I mean, you win the national title last year, you take a step down, but that's not really a big deal. But it is when you're looking at this schedule. So, Michigan, non conference, they play the best non conference game of the year, in my opinion, when Texas, who is going to be really tough, I'll do them in the SEC segment, but Texas is at Michigan. I think second week of September. That's brutal. So, anyway, Michigan's got Texas. Then they follow up with USC at home. Then they get to go chuck it out a couple times, three time zones to Seattle, to Washington. Then Oregon, they get them at home, and then at Ohio State, the classic there. So obviously at Ohio State, never going to be easy. But when you've got Texas, USC, Washington, Oregon, and Ohio State on your schedule, uh, you don't have it easy. So let's see how Michigan does with that. I was looking at Indiana. I couldn't help. I got to mention them here. These poor people just start counting for basketball right now. I mean, they probably do that every year, but this might be a year to start talking round ball early. So Indiana's at UCLA. They get Washington at home. They're at Michigan, at Michigan State. They get Michigan at home and then Ohio State. Michigan, Ohio State back to back. They're used to that though, so that's really nothing new for them. But so that's a tough schedule as well. Let's see who else we got on here. I want to talk about Nebraska for a second because they're going to come in as one of the easier schedules in the Big Ten this year, and I'd be prepared to hear a lot of talk about Nebraska's comeback this year. For those of you that are under the age of 40, you have no idea that Nebraska was once a great power. They every year they were in the fight for the national title. That hasn't been the case in almost, well, since 1997. So how many years is that? 27 years. They haven't been worth a crap. So they got an easy schedule this year until you get to the end. Till they get to November, late October, November, and then we'll see what they're really made of. Because they get UCLA at home, and they could easily win that, of course. But then they go to USC. There we'll see some how what they're made of a bit. Wisconsin home, and of course their annual matchup at Iowa, a game they haven't won, I think, in 5 years. So, this Nebraska does not have a tough schedule. I think you're going to hear if they're any better, which isn't saying much, than what they've been in the past few years, and I think they will be. You're going to hear a lot of Nebraska comeback stories, and we'll see if they can really deliver on that. As I've told you guys, I'm from Iowa. I'm an alumni of Iowa. I grew up in small town northern Iowa. I am an Iowa Hawkeye fan. So let's just get that out there. But Iowa has one of the easier schedules in the Big Ten. In fact, they could be favored in every game they play, except for when they go to Ohio State. That's by far, from what I see, the toughest game on the schedule. They avoid USC. They avoid Michigan. They avoid Oregon. And that's crucial to avoid those three. And Iowa does that this year. So Iowa will be interesting. They can have any offense, any pulse on offense at all, combined with their traditional awesome defense. They'll make some waves in the Big Ten and maybe even get to the playoffs. So anyway, you guys may think I'm a little biased on that, but look at their schedule. Tell me I'm wrong. So anyway, that's the Big Ten pretty much this year. And it's those are the ones I just kind of picked out as the toughest. I think Oregon. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to Oregon, UCLA, Michigan State, Ohio State, uh, Michigan, Wisconsin, Washington. That's tough. That's tough. I don't know. USC could have it rougher. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. All of the West Coast teams are taking a major step up in competition. The defunct Pac-12, nada, gone. This is an upgrade right here. But the truth is, they're going to lay some wood on some of the legacy Big Ten teams too. So, if you saw my first installment, I talked about how these two massive conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, I wasn't that crazy about it. But now, I'm just looking at these schedules and I'm starting to get kind of excited because every week, if you just look at the Big Ten alone, every week there is a great game practically. And we're not even talking about the SEC yet. We'll get to that in another installment. But so that's the way it looks for me. My prediction on all this in the Big Ten is that I think you've got to just say Ohio State again. Dark horse, I'm gonna go with my Iowa Hawkeyes. I get some comments on that. But Oregon, don't discount Oregon at all. USC, real wild card. Can they up the town? They're getting a lot of good recruits, and I think USC is going to be maybe as tough as last year, even though they lost Caleb Williams. So those are the teams that I say that can really look up. Again, dark horse might be a Michigan State. Keep your eye again on Nebraska. I'm telling you, because this schedule is favorable and they should be, I think, much improved on the field. So watch for Nebraska. So the dark horse, Nebraska, dark horse, Iowa. Your favorites, Ohio State, Oregon. I'm going to throw USC in there. And of course, you got to put Michigan in. So that's the way I look at it. In the middle there, I'm going to go Penn State and Wisconsin. These are two teams that question marks, but they're in that middle range. Could go either way. So anyway, you guys, that's my Big Ten take. Be sure to like, comment, and please subscribe. So thank you, you guys. Have a good night.